Okay, shall we start? I'm going to go out into my head. Delete!
Hi, this Brilliant.
So here we are, lesson 2. Let me just check. I've got captions, I've got everything. Yeah. So do you want to start just very briefly, if people just catch this video with a brief description of ourselves? Shall I go first again, or do you want to go? Okay, so this is Rita speaking. I'm a white woman in my late 40s. I'm wearing a jeans, dark blue apron, and dark top. And I have seeing glasses with black frames and long black hair on top of my head. In front of me, there is a table. I'm in my kitchen. Behind me, there's like white wall. In front of me, there's a table, and on my table, I have 100 grams of rye Irish grain. I have milled flour, another 100 grams, and then on the other side, I have the thing I used to mill it. It's called a mortar. What's it called?
Mortar and pestle.
A mortar and pestle, this thing. And that's me. Over to you guys.
Hi, I'm Julie. I'm a white woman. I've got grey hair. I'm wearing blue glasses, grey top. I'm sitting next to my husband Joe, and we're in our bakery, and we have a wood-fired oven. So we're sitting in front of our wood-fired oven with a lovely red wall. You can kind of see a fire lighting, and we have some things on the table in front of us, and Joe will talk you through that.
Hi, I'm Joe. I'm a white man, 50, grey-haired, slightly balding. My kids keep on slagging me about it, but that's okay. And so we're sitting here in our bakery, which I was saying last time. We started building 10 years ago. I've been working in that time. We have a selection. I've got some from rye grain, milled different amounts. We also have some wheat here growing away. And behind me here, we have our logo, which is a fist holding, a left fist, to symbolize the socialist side of what we're doing and the kind of why we're called Red Right. We'll go into that another time. And,
amazing.
Yeah.
Great.
Behind me here is a little photograph you might be able to see. You might have difficulty seeing, and that's Alan Scott, and he designed this oven. Right.
Oh yes, Julie, can you bring it closer to the camera?
Yeah.
I'm going
This
to
is
come
Alan.
Right up the camera there. Yeah, you can show him off.
Yeah, and he designed your oven.
He designed this oven, yeah. So I spoke to him for a while, and we collaborated, and so this would be known as an Alan Scott oven that we work with. So that's a picture of him that we have on the wall. So he looks over and we make sure I do it right.
Wow. Brilliant. Oh, thanks for that.
There you go.
So, do you want to start with my bits to you or your lesson to me? How do you feel?
I don't mind whichever way you, Julie.
Why don't you start with your lesson? I'm going to pop up and print that thing out.
Okay.
This schedule. Yeah, and then I'll just be around, and then I'll come back in to talk dance. I'm just going to print
Great.
Talk dance.
Although I'd like to hear how you get on.
Yeah.
How you've got on actually.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah.
So how did you get on with last week?
Okay, so how did I get on? So can you see everything on my table, Joe?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Okay, so here is measured 100 grams of the rye.
Okay.
And then here is 100 grams that I did on the mortar and pestle. Now, I'm not sure if this is fine enough or if you want me to do it finer. So I had these ambitions of doing the whole bag, didn't I? But then I got busy and I didn't. But I can do more between, this week. But yeah, I don't know. Is this fine enough? Do you want me
Well,
to
how does it feel? Does it feel like there's lumpy bits in it? Large lumpy bits?
No, it feels like a coarse flour though. It doesn't feel like, so it doesn't feel like, it does not feel like this.
Yeah, no, won't, no, that's completely refined, that is, yeah. No, it won't be anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
refined flour.
You
Once there's lots of...
want me to show you with the phone for you to see?
No, it should be fine. It's probably quite similar to this. So once there's lots of very fine little bits, there can be some chunky bits in there, but once there's lots of very fine bits,
Yeah.
that'll be enough.
Yeah.
Just once it wets up for it to be able to, otherwise it'll all be locked up inside the hard bits. Yeah.
Okay.
And how did you find doing that?
Okay, so I counted the time as well. So I found it really doable. My arms didn't get as tired as I thought they were going to do. And I did, so I managed to do 100 grams in 40 minutes. So it took me a while.
14?
40.
Okay.
How long does it take you to do it, Joe?
No, I'm just like, I was reading up a piece. It used to take 2 women 2 hours to do, I think I was saying about 10 pounds. So it was just kind of, it's the amount of labor. This is what we were trying to investigate with you. That it took you 4 minutes to do 100 grams if you were doing that, using these old methods, either using a quern was like a very rough way of doing it, or else where they used to use 2 stones, would push them against each other. So I was just trying to investigate with you, like, how much energy it was. If you make a loaf of bread, if you were to do 500 grams, you're looking at a couple of hours work to make just the flour for your loaf of bread, you know. So I just wanted you to investigate this, you know. People don't have to do that anymore. We have mills and we have millers and we don't do this. Some parts of the world still may, but we don't necessarily. So this is why I just wanted you to investigate, because as we go on, you'll be how we're going to use that now, and if you feel like it's precious, or
So you know, sorry, Joe. One of the things I was thinking about when I was doing it is, Julie, do you remember the piece we did together some years ago where I walked from England into Ireland? And so that piece really taught me how long distance takes, like how long, like from here to Ireland, it's not a 1 hour flight, it's like 2 months. And this was the same, like the time of this little bit. So it really made me think about how long the time of it. Duration, I suppose the word is duration. Yeah. So yeah. Go on. Joe, before you continue, for the next bit that you're going to teach me today, if you want me to do more, I'll do more before I go on to the next bit.
Yeah, because I emailed you over and so for the instructions for when we're going to build the starter, but that's going to be done over a week, and I think maybe within that we use 120, 140, maybe about 140 grams over the week.
Okay.
So I'll within the next week, you'll probably have to mill another. If you do another 100 grams over the next week.
Another 100 grams.
Over the next week.
Another 100 grams of flour. Okay, brilliant. Okay, right. I'm ready.
Yeah. Okay, so as we were saying, that was to investigate that side when we were looking back on flour and the amount of energy and time, and we're going to investigate today. Okay. Great. Yeah. So what we want to look at today, we're going to look at like fermentation, and then as we're moving on from last week or the last session, we were looking at why we eat bread and where it came from and the grains, and we looked at a bit of milling just to be getting our basic raw ingredients. And today I really wanted to look at it. So people, started growing these hybridizing grasses. So people would have been milling and processing and eating them before the different grasses were hybridized. And this is, as I was saying, this is a selection of different wheats. loads of different types. There's about 7 or 9 different ones in here. These are all sent out from Denmark, so purple, and all different varieties. And these would have a really long root structure here. I sent you over an image there of a grain, a cross section of a piece of grain.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you see around the outside of that, so it has bracts. So we can see they're the hairy bits around the outside of the grain when it's still on the straw here. And then as we start refining it, and then the bran. So that was the bit around the outside of the grain, and that protects the grain, and it stops it from breaking down until it begins to germinate. And then you see the endosperm. So that's most of the grain. That's about 75% of the grain or so, and that's that'll be the center of it, and that's the food for the germ, and that provides the food. And the germ is the embryo of the grain, and out of this, the roots will come out. And then the leaf will go up for it to get nutrients out of the sun and out of the soil. So these are the
It's
different.
like a baby.
Yeah,
It's like a baby, like belly.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And it's like when we start looking at the different, like either plants and animals, and we can really see the similarities, and how different parts evolve. Yeah, and like so, if you look at a natural like an egg, where it has that egg sac, the yolk, and then you have the white. So we have, and then the embryo is on the side of that, usually on an egg. You would have so the shell protected, same as grains. You have the shell, which would be the bran, which is protecting it. And then the germ is the embryo, and out of this, a new life is going to grow. So I'm just going to bring some of these up to you here. Yeah, you can see here, this is all dripping down. So these are some, you're going to be doing this stuff when you start your growing. So we can see here is a wheat which has started to grow. So the leaf is coming up into the sunlight, looking for nutrients, and the roots are then going to go down, looking to get some nutrients out of the soil. And there's enough food within the endosperm, which is the center of the grain, so it can start its life before it can get its life out of the soil and out of the sun. So there's enough in there, and that'll grow for a little while. And then if it doesn't get nutrients out of the sun and the soil, it'll eventually die. A bit like ourselves and lots of plants.
Yeah.
So the plant itself, so it's growing, so it's going to go off into the soil, looking for nutrients, but a lot of the nutrients that this plant wants to use are locked up within the soil. So the minerals, which might be in the rocks and the stones, they're locked up, and so they're in a non-soluble format within the plant. So the bacteria that are in the soil, they break down these minerals and they make them available to the plant, so the plant can grow. So the plant starts going up in the sunlight, starts bringing down nutrients and bringing them down, and starts putting them out into the soil to attract bacteria to it. And the bacteria looking for these foods as well from the roots. So the bacteria that's in the soil, they start making the food bioavailable to the plant, and the plant attracts it over to it. But for some of these minerals, the plant itself can't absorb the bacteria. So the bacteria have to get eaten by an amoeba, which is a little single-celled animal, and then that gets eaten by a nematode, and the nematode secretes the minerals in a soluble format for the plant to get these, and for the plant then to grow. So the plant is building up this ecosystem within the soil, working at it, attracting bacteria to it, attracting this life to it, so it can go, and it's communicating out and putting it out there. And this is why we would work with organic growers that are working with the soil instead of putting a lot of glyphosate out and poisoning the soil, and just growing these kind of plants by adding synthetic nutrients on top. The plants will grow, of course, but that does nothing for the biomeme within the soil. And we need this biomeme to grow and grow. So this is where we're going to be looking at our role within this. Through the whole of our process here, we're going to be looking at are we exploitative of the soil for our own benefit, for us to grow as humans? Or are we part, because we are part of this system also. So we must be looking into the soil. How are the plants that we are going to put into the soil? Are they going to be beneficial for the soil? Are they going to add nutrients into the soil so the soil can benefit and build up a greater biome? And then for us to come up there, and then the plants will grow. And on top of that, so then we have these grains, these nutritious grains are all up there. And now we have them here. So you have a kilo of you had the rye there that would have grown through organic methods with a grower, put nutrients in to help build up that biome so they can be rich year after year and nourish the soil and then extract it in a cycle. So we have it just coming up here. So the plant's working with the bacteria for its multi. And then we've milled this. So, but if you try and eat them like that, for one, there's an enzyme on the outside of it, on the bran, which protects it, called phytic acid. And that protects it in your gut as well. So it prevents it being broken down, because plants don't really want to be broken down in the gut. They want animals to move them around the place. See, often the seeds, they're attractive, but they don't break down in the guts and they get moved around. So they use that. So that's protected. So and also you break your teeth if you try and chew them like this. So we saw.
I know, I'm trying. It's very hard.
Yeah, it's really hard. Yeah. And we wanted to, because when they're stored, they'll dry out into. So you crushed them there, and you made them, and you made your flour. But if you try to eat that, if you're trying to eat your flour like that, have a little pick of that flour.
Can I try?
Yeah, have a go. Terrible, isn't it? Bit rubbish.
It's tasty.
Might be tasty. You're not going to eat much of it. And, so people would have been making simple porridges. So you don't have to. Julie's going to email you over the set of instructions of how we're going to do this in a particular way. But this is just a general what's going to go on in the process over the next week.
Okay.
So by putting in a little bit of these crushed grains, and then we add some water to it. And because the grain, so within the instructor, it's going to say we're going to put in about 20 grams of the flour and add in maybe 30 grams of the water, because it's going to absorb quite a lot of it. And as soon as you add water to the flour, the enzymes in there will start breaking it down, start releasing sugars and starches, and then the bacteria and wild yeasts that are all over us and all over our grains, these start feeding on the starches and the sugars in there, creating foods for other bacteria, and then they start feeding up, and a symbiotic relationship will start building up. So the first day we bring them together, they start swelling up, and the wild yeast and bacteria will start feeding on these sugars and start changing. And
so sorry, can I ask you a question?
Please do, yeah.
So why is it that adding water to the flour releases the enzyme that gets the bacteria going? Is it just a chemical reaction?
Yeah, and it's completely natural. You know, as it happens with or without us as humans. You walk down the bog road down on the other side, and like especially in October, November, and we can smell the fermentation in the air. The apple tree grows in September, and it can smell the cider, the drunken wasps under the blackcurrant bushes. And these happen with or without us. Like lactofermentation is a process of where it starts breaking down and going back into itself, and the bacteria.
Okay.
So there's an enzyme, again, amylase, and there's a rye itself is really high in an enzyme called amylase, which starts all this process of breaking down the starches and sugars and making them available to wild yeasts. And this is why rye is one of the easiest grains to ferment. So we start people off on this journey with rye, much easier than just using the white flour that you'll have.
Okay.
So then, if you leave that for a couple of days, and it'll start doing its thing, it'll start breaking down itself, and the bacteria should start building up in the yeast. So then after 2 days, we're going to add another 20 grams of the flour. and about 25 grams of water. That's adding more food for the bacteria that are in here.
Yeah.
Adding more bacteria to them and more.
Okay.
And then we continue that. Here's one which I did, and this has been going out for leaving it in a warm place as well. You're going to leave it somewhere in the mid-20s. This here you can see, so I'm just going to break through that, and we can see there's some little bubbles in here. The smell, not the nicest smell currently, but I'm just going to taste it. Lovely sweet and sour taste in there. So this has been fermenting for around 3 days now.
Okay.
So the bacteria and the yeasts are beginning to colonize this, and the yeasts, when they feed on the sugars and starches which have been created by the bacteria, they release carbon dioxide, and that's what's making the bubbles inside here. So we can see that they're present.
Okay.
So this flavor that we're getting, these acids that are starting to build up at day 3, this is telling us the pH of our mix is beginning to drop. And the nasty bacteria can't survive in these low pHs. The likes of E. coli, Salmonella, B. SIRIUS, all these ones that will make us ill as a species, they can't survive in these low pHs. So it's a way of preserving foods. Lactofermentation. We have pastrami, we have meats, you have kimchi, sauerkraut. All these are all lactofermented vegetables, and the similar process, because the nasty bacteria can't survive in these really acidic conditions. But
okay, so that's why fermentation has been used throughout our civilization as a way of preserving food.
Absolutely.
Because fermentation is bacteria, but it's done in a way that only the good bacteria survive, not the bad bacteria.
Yeah. So we create a condition for the beneficial bacteria, the ones we're using this is a lactobacillus primarily in here, and they're going to create food for wild yeasts who end up in a symbiotic relationship with each other. And it's the wild yeast, when they create the carbon dioxide and they feed, and that's what's going to make our bread rise. So we want to create a condition in there with an abundance of bacteria, because they're going to create lots of food for loads of wild yeast, and loads of wild yeast are going to make our bread rise. So so we continue to, so you want to be noticing at around day 4, they are starting to get these flavor. If your starter tastes rotten at this, if you taste it and it's disgusting, throw it away. That means it has been inhabited by the bacteria you don't want. So it's beginning to rot rather than ferment.
Okay, so by day 4, when I taste it.
Yes, you should have by around day 4. The pH should be dropping by then. So you should be getting a sour flavor within your mix by day 4.
Okay.
I have all this on the instructions that Julie's just sending over to you now.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's building up, and you keep on. So what you're going to have to do now, so after your first day, because we don't want to end up with loads and loads of this, and we want to be refreshing this kind of equal parts, the original starter, flour and water. Every day you're going to have to take out 40 grams of your mix and put it into the compost and get rid of it. And then you got to add more fresh flour and more water. So every day you're going to have to take some of your flour that you've just spent the last 40 minutes an hour and throw it away.
Okay, explain to me why again, because otherwise, because I need to add in order to feed. If I don't take away, I would end up with like lots and lots of starch.
Absolutely.
Is that right?
You'll end up wasting a huge amount. Because if we're putting in equal amounts, we'll go from having 50 grams, 150 grams, 450 grams, 1.5 kilos, 4.5 kilos, 50,
it's incremental.
You have 45 kilos in a week. And you don't need 45 kilos. You only need 15.
Okay, get it.
Now, a lot of people have this. So this is why I wanted you to actually crush the grains by hand. Because so when you're taking it out and getting rid of it, you kind of go, this is precious. I've just spent, it's a grower has gone to all this trouble making this, you know, and working with the soil and growing these beautiful foods. And now I'm after crushing it. And now I'm going to get rid of it. So we want to be putting that back into the soil. So this is why we put it into our compost. And our relationship with this food is that we are part of this species. We are part of this whole species. You know, us as a human, we're part of, so the nutrients, we've put the nutrients into the soil, we've hybridized these grains are coming up within us. So there's an abundance of them, that's our relationship. Who's getting us to do this? Is it us or the bacteria, you know? Now all of a sudden there's billions of wild yeast and bacteria. They weren't there before, they didn't have this beautiful environment. Who's like, are they getting us? Are we their slaves? Or, you know, so we have this nice relationship going on now. So we don't want to get that and just throw it away. So we want to put that back into the soil to be growing more food. So you can be putting it into your compost, bringing it up to your plot.
That's a great, yes, of course.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Right up with because usually it's an extractive process with growing. We take the food out.
Yeah.
We eat it and we flush it. We flush the rest of it down the toilet, which is madness. It disappears, you know. So there's constantly this extractive process. And this is why, you know, the work with Chris up at the Red Gardens, we take so much of our, what other people would consider waste, but really it's nutrients, you know, it needs to be brought back up and put back into the soil. So this isn't the soil, this is a resource that we can be using. So even though we're looking at the baking side, we must be always conscious of these different cycles that we have and the different circles, you know, and closing these loops. Some of the loops are quite small and some of them are much bigger. So we can close those loops of any waste. So although you've crushed the grain, you're going to put it back into the soil and be growing more. And yeah, and then that's going to continue over the week. And by the end of the week, you'll have a really luscious one. The flavors should be really quite big on it. And eventually it'll be bubbling up like this. Yeah, and that's going to be your role for the week. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So I'm going to follow the instructions as you sent them to me.
Yeah.
And it's all there. But can I say it back to you to see if I understood generally? So you take 20 grams of this flour, you take 30 grams of water, you leave it for 2 days.
Yeah.
You leave it for 2 days in a closed Tupperware. Now, do I put this Tupperware in a cold environment or warm environment or neutral, like middle?
Warm. Initially, for what we're going at the beginning of it, because we want to create an environment where the particular bacteria needs that we want to thrive, we want to have it somewhere in the mid-20s, somewhere between 22 and 27. A hot press is good. Like last week when I was planting this, I was, oh great, the heat is coming back into the air. It was getting really warm, and now the last 2 days it's been freezing cold. So, you know, so you might be thinking if it remains whatever it is, it must be 16 degrees or so. That won't be great. It'll take long. So you put it in your hot press if it's very cold. But if it's summertime, you know, and the sun is coming into your house, you can just leave it on your counter. So it's just trying to get into a nice warm space so that it's in the mid-20s. Yeah.
Get it. So then after 2 days, add 20 grams of flour.
Well, you're going to take out 40 grams at that stage.
40 grams,
back in 20 grams
and 25 grams of
25
water.
grams of water.
Okay, get you. And then taste it after 4 days. Make sure it doesn't taste rotten. It should taste yeasty. Like what should it taste like? How do you describe it?
Start having some kind of a vinegary, quite acidic flavors will be coming in. Eventually, we're looking for, I always describe it as a crabapple flavor. You're looking for a sweet and sour, but a really lively, you know, by the end of the week, our flavors should be coming in that when you taste it, it should really taste alive. And there's a sweetness and a sour and a pep to it and a real zing. And then we know there's a really thriving ecosystem in there of the beneficial bacteria and yeasts.
Amazing.
And we'll look at this as we Yeah. Now next week we'll talk about the role then the plant is going to do through the fermentation for our digestion and stuff like that. We can leave that on to next week.
Okay. Beautiful. I love the way you talk about your work. It's so poetic and just connected. Like you're like this idea, you put it in the compost because it goes back to the soil. Like you're really aware of the connection between everything. And I think that's really beautiful, Joe.
Cheers. Thanks. Yeah, and that's part of what we do. And as we're trying to progress and we look at regenerative practices and how we like the idea of sustainability, like really sustaining what we've been doing, So if we are, an awful lot of people are struggling with the idea of collapse and what's happening in the future. But I really think by looking at our role and our relationship to the soil and the earth and the species, and we're not isolated from it, that we are part of this, and it's in all our benefit, for, where people are struggling with extinction at the moment on our own, and we're all part of this, and I find it, it's for me personally, a beneficial place to sit within more of that space, having a closer relationship to the soil, the earth, the plants, the animals, and our place within that, because it makes us have a greater concern for the plants, the animals, and ourselves within that, when we see ourselves within it and not separated out as not atomized and individualized, which
yeah.
There's
something that I know we need to move it onto the dance, but just one thing that occurs to me, I read, I forget which book, which author, but this idea of moving away from ecosystem thinking, which is what we have in our culture, to ecosystem thinking. And it's exactly what you said. It's less about thinking about ourselves in an itemized way, my ego, my needs, and more about the way you're describing your process, the ecosystem that you, Joe, Julie, the bakery are part of in what you do. Ecosystem thinking to ecosystem thinking. I think it's really interesting.
It is, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, that's this week.
Should we dance?
Yeah, Julie. I'll go get Julie.
Okay. Hello. Hey, Julie.
Hey.
Okay. Is it okay if we start with just kind of maybe the structure of the email I sent you, kind of take that as the structure for today. And I just wanted to start first by getting your thoughts on how I'm proposing to structure rehearsals over all the 10 rehearsals that we have. Does that feel okay with you? Did you have any thoughts?
Did you get a chance to look at that email that we just sent? Joe was baking. I think you emailed on Monday. Joe was baking all day.
Oh, right. Okay.
Monday in the evening when we were working.
Yeah, we looked at the video they sent us.
Well, we looked at.
The message.
Okay. Yeah. So just going back to those
structure. Yeah.
If anything is of concern, just let me know. But I thought it would be useful to kind of have a sense of how things might progress. And
that looked it looked fine to me. I got a bit nervous because I was like, we'll get it all done, and then that was just that initial thing, and then I just thought, no, I'm just going to trust Risa. You're leading us through this process. She's going to take care of that, so that's fine. Yeah,
I'm going to hold you like you're holding me in my bread. And I just wanted to say to you that towards the end, I'm going to stop sharing these rehearsals on YouTube, because obviously once we start creating a performance, I want to keep a kind of curtains closed so that then we rehearse it, and then it only shows at the end of the performance. So once it starts becoming a thing, we're going to go, sorry, audiences, you have to wait for the premiere. Perfect. Is that okay?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. So did you look at those links that were about kind of performance to camera, and what thoughts do you have about that as a genre?
We watched We watched half of the Tim Dickey video.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, will I speak first?
You speak.
Yeah,
Of course,
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
speaking
yeah.
for the last topic.
Grand, okay. So I was just, I was really amazed. I couldn't. So it was amazing to see people dancing outside because out of necessity, and it was really beautiful because he was dancing under a tree at one point, and the tree was moving, and I was just like, it was just really beautiful to see that interaction, and just to see that, that as a dance artist, his world had just been reduced to, choreographing and performing a solo via Zoom in his backyard. This was May last year. And then I think we got a bit freaked out because what it really conveyed to me was the choreography of the camera as well, which is what you were specifically trying to show us. And I suddenly realized I know nothing about that and I haven't done that before. So that was great because that really did demonstrate that, which is what you were trying to illustrate to us.
Yeah.
So that really came across. So I felt a little bit daunted because I was thinking, okay, I don't know how to do that. So that's something I need to learn, which is great. And I'm happy to learn that. You were coming in and out and watching it as well, because I had it playing while Joe was baking on Monday, and you were baking.
Yes.
Okay.
You were watching it, yeah. And what did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and similar to what Julie was saying about the performance of the camera, there was a lovely piece where he's in the center of the shot, and then the camera all of a sudden just pans slightly left, and he moves to the right, and it opens up the window of the house next door, and all of a sudden, so we're usually, so it would be, we've designed our set, so this is our space here, and an audience, and then all of a sudden the camera now has the ability of opening up this much larger stage and the audience's relationship. So it opened up this window to the side, and it's like, all of a sudden this other world is over here, which he's still doing the same thing. He hasn't moved at all, there's all so the ability then of what the camera is going to be able to do, as Julie was saying, rather than it just being a static performance, the camera's always in that.
So that's what I find really interesting, because when I was just doing a bit of playing around, I sent you a couple of little videos of me out in the woodshed and in front of the oven. So normally when I'm performing, I'm thinking about my relationship to the audience, but normally my audience is static. So they're sitting down.
Yeah.
You can do that on our performances. And then so suddenly that was another relationship, and it's very dynamic as well. And it's another set of choices to be making as well. So, I was doing a little bit of playing in front of the fire, and I was aware that I was framing myself and editing myself. And so it's a whole new element to think about, which is really interesting.
And then as we were going through that, when we were saying the relationship with the camera and the three different types of cameras that we had a potential to use. And then it was like, so what were the abilities of the cameras in themselves? Because the cameras on the phone can do a huge amount more than just broadcasting, So we were running with hyperlapse and then replaying it back.
Yes.
So doing a 20-minute thing, and then that's reduced down to a few minutes, or slow-mo, and you see in the sound within slow-mo is completely different. So then I want to work on those questions, how that would be, if that's a live broadcast, as in, if it's a live, how will they be mixed in, or, is it worth our while going down that route and investigating what the possibilities of these are if they can't be done through a live broadcast, or will there be bits brought in that will be pre-recorded snippets and then back to live? So that's kind of what I was trying to.
Great questions and great observations. So some thoughts from me. Yes. So Julie, when you were talking about your first impressions around this performance to camera thing and the choreography of the camera, to me, what impresses me about people who do this really well is the precision. You know, there is no kind of, oh, you know, there's a bit of this out of shot. No, like they've thought about it precisely, almost like they would have had to map the space precisely so that if this is not supposed to be in the shot as they move, it isn't. So like the precision of choreographing a performance to camera like that. And then, yes, yeah, go, Julie.
And so that, what I noticed that his performance was via Zoom, so it was done in one take.
Yeah.
So that was, because I remember seeing this film called Russian Ark or something years ago, and it was an hour and a half film, Russian film, and it was shot in one take with one camera.
Yeah.
So when you talk about precision, that is amazing to think that was.
It is.
Yeah. To think, and it was done in one take. Yeah. Just huge.
Yeah. And then, yeah, Joe, I also love those moments. And I think it's the thing that we don't have in theatre. So in theatre, for us not to see the performers, like you said, Julie, as well, that we're static. And if we don't want the performers to be seen, they exit, you know, they exit sideways. Whereas here, we can move the audience's eyes. So somebody's dancing, and then you just shift this way, and a little window opens, and a light turns on, and then you can just shift back, you know. So this potential is really exciting. I'm really glad you noticed that. I love those moments. And then, yeah, so the question, Joe, about the other potentialities of hyperlapse and slow motion. So they are possible in the sense that, so John Gunning is going to be with us throughout the whole thing remotely, but he's going to have the possibility to VJ from his side. So that because, and the reason why is because, for instance, after your performance, the edited film of the processes that I'm doing of the bridge, which is like a pre-recorded, pre-edited thing, will be fed into the same link straight after your performance. So John is doing that. So potentially, Joe, it is possible that there would be a couple of pre-recorded films that John would have in advance, and like a technician, you know, on this cue, you cue in that film, you know, so it's possible. So it's complex, but it's possible. So I would say if those ideas continue to interest us going forward, let's keep the possibility open to doing that. Yeah.
And did you manage to talk to the person with the drone? Is that a possibility, do you think?
Yes. So I've had a crazy week, but I'm talking to the person with the drone today. I'm giving that person a call so we can do some of those experiments after today, hopefully.
Because I love the idea that it would be amazing to have that possibility to open out, just as a lens, to open it right out and then bring it right in. It just could be a lovely way even to just open the performance in terms of starting really wide.
I agree.
Slowly coming in, or the opposite way, or at different points just pulling right out and then coming back in. Just because that possibility to play with that perspective is it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so I saw all your videos.
Well done.
And so the hyperlapse is interesting, the slow-mo is interesting. Julie, you just have a way of being that's really interesting on camera. Like, you don't have to do anything, you can just be. So it's really watchable. And then I loved also, there's something about, so towards the end, when your videos started to be about the dome machine, and there's movement in that, That was really interesting. So, you know, Julie, the one where you first just went across it like this. And then as it started moving, you started going across it like that. And then there was another shot where you saw the spiral tool going like this. And just something about that and the movement of that really tickled me. I was a bit like, oh, you know, so there's something in that, I think. Okay, so in terms of these camera experiments, I'll get in touch with that person so we can try the drone. You've tried the phone lots. Iriun, do you find Iriun at all interesting, or it doesn't?
What we're finding is the delay in the picture. There's a delay in between the movement on the picture. And even when we have them right beside each other in the Wi-Fi in the house, so they're both on quite a good strength, we're finding there's just a slight delay.
Okay.
Whether that's something you kind of go, okay, that's a property of that, and then, you know, when you move it, it delayed. But even when it was static and the person was moving within it, wasn't it? Yeah, there was a delay in it.
Yeah, we're finding we can't really use it in the bakery because, that's why we didn't play around with that. It's just too jumpy.
Okay.
So if you go like this, and if you're moving like that, it freezes and it jumps. So that's why we didn't experiment with that.
Okay. So let me try something. Okay, let me try something. From my side.
You have to turn one of your mics off.
Okay, is this better?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, great. So okay. Let me try something. Okay, what's the image like? Can you see my moving camera?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's the image like from your side? Is it jumpy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah, okay. Okay, so if I move fast like this, the quality is not good on your side, no?
No.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, it's jumpy. It's not a smooth movement within it. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Let me come out of it.
Like, which might be a quality, you know, you kind of go, okay, that's a quality of that. You would try and play, but it's another thing to work on. You know, it's not, it's with the time. We're like the whole.
Yeah, let's put it in suspension for now then.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's kind of camera stuff. Just before we move on, from all the videos you made for me, in terms of, I know it wasn't about the content, it's about the experimentation with camera. Were there a few that you thought, we're interested in these, but these maybe not? Like, were there a few that you thought you were really interested in exploring more?
I liked when Julie was doing, I was talking about cycles, and you see, and then just how the camera started turning then as well. So you get
I like that.
Cyclical experience, kind of, and related to the movement, whatever we were talking about, the cycles, and then the camera was moving inside. Like that, as you said, so working with camera gives the possibility of doing that, which you wouldn't have if you're a static audience just watching a static performance.
Yeah.
So that kind of a thing.
It makes me think about this book that you've been reading. what's it called? The artisan? No,
Craftsman?
Craftsman. So it's in. So when Joe was doing the shaping, he was talking about the circularity of the seasons, which is what you're exploring now, and also in his work baking with the dough and how the seasons change, and those things he was talking about while he was doing the folding of the dough. Was it the folding?
It was rounding.
The rounding.
Pre-folding.
So it could be interesting to explore that in terms of potentially with the piece we start somewhere and then maybe we end up just coming back to that place or not, I don't know. But just like you're saying,
yeah,
the circuit, I'm just thinking kind of physically in the bakery or in the woodshed or out and about if we move. So potentially as a...
I love it. I get it. Let me say it back to you. Is it, are you saying, so there's this circularity of the seasons, there's what Joe was talking about in that video, and so you're thinking that structurally it could be interesting to structure the piece so that it moves from point A, goes into B, C, D, E, and then it returns to point A as a circular thing. And it almost could be happening over and over and over again, although we cut it for the audience, something like that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in a way that's our lives as well, isn't it?
But
it feels like that at the moment.
But it is, but although within that, it's more of a spiral. It can either spiral down or up. You know, because it's not actually circular. It might be like that, but within a spiral, there's growth within it. You know, if you're looking at an Archimedes screw or something like that, where although it goes around in that motion, it doesn't actually return to the same place.
Yes,
you know, there has been growth within it, so it builds on what became before, and it's this constant building and building through these cycles. We build on and we build, and we, you know, that's that kind of thing rather than the static circle that is caught in a loop.
No, I get it. I understand that very well, and I mean, in performance, many choreographers have done this. Like Bausch would do this a lot. You know, there's something that keeps repeating, but then when it comes back to the beginning, it's already different because the dancer's got like leaves stuck to her face or like soil everywhere, or you know, so you know it's the same but different because exactly what you say. You know, it keeps adding, it keeps changing. It's the same but not really the same. So I think that's beautiful. So I'm going to kind of hold these ideas in suspension because I think they're great. And
I really enjoyed just playing around myself on my own, just with the camera and just kind of having a little play around with that. I enjoyed that. And it was interesting to have it. There was one point where I was kind of kneading.
Kneading your face.
Yeah, and it reminded me of the dough. I was kneading, and then I just made that connection to thinking of the dough. Just because as I get older, my skin is changing and it's lined and it doesn't spring back as quickly. It was making me. I just drew that connection to the dough. It's quite interesting.
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
beautiful. Hold on to that. And then the bit on the wood as well. Do you remember?
Yeah.
So my interpretation of that, Julie, is that you were trying to place your head on the wood, but because it's uneven, you're kind of trying to find. So the movement that task actually created was really interesting because you sort of just see your head kind of going.
Yeah.
So I really loved that.
And I think what it brought up as well is there's definitely potential for us to slow some of the sounds down in the bakery as well, which I don't know, just the industrial sound of the mixer. And then it would be nice to have a fire lighting when we're doing the performance and you can hear the fire crackling because that's a really beautiful sound.
Definitely.
And our son who was doing the bread deliveries and he just filmed it. Was on what was that? Hyperlapse. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know. That was just a kind of thing, which was fun to do, but I'm not sure I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It was just
Yeah.
you were saying in relationship to the camera, what's possible for the camera. So
exactly.
investigating
Yeah.
what they do technically,
Yeah.
and is there anything in there?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
with it or not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just trying things out. Okay, so that's good. I think a lot has come out of what you've tried out already. So my invitation for you this week would be to focus on three elements. So forget about don't forget about so this is not necessarily about how it's framed by the camera. But if you feel the impetus to think about the camera, go for it already. But I'm more interested now in what I can see, so the content. And it's on three types of content. So I'm interested in movement content. So anything that relates to the work that you're doing, the folding, your action joke. That thing that goes like this, and then you throw it, movement content, the walking, anything. And then Julie, you spoke to me so let me just say the elements I've seen. So movement, whatever that means to you in what you're doing. Sound, which again was already coming out from the videos you sent me, but I wonder if there's kind of more clear investigations of sound, like maybe just audio recording the fire for a while or something like that. Or maybe just audio recording this, I don't know. And then in terms of text, I was asking questions around recipes or the text that you have. You have so much text around the bakery, lots of words. And so I suppose my invitation to you is to work from those and then take them to a level of abstraction that, like, just explore the level of abstraction. So it could be that this is what you're doing, Joe, and you just take the tools away and it's still very mimetic. It's still exactly what it is. And then maybe it could be that you ask a question around, what if I abstract it a little bit? So I don't know. Or maybe you ask a question around, I'm just going to take the feel of it and take away the form, and maybe it just becomes this. I don't know. And so at this point in time, if you're happy to explore with levels of abstraction, so identify the elements on text, movement, and sound, come up with a few, and then explore levels of abstraction. And then you see different performers feel comfortable with different levels of abstraction. So my question to you is, what feels right? Because some performers, particularly dancers, sometimes just want to get rid of any form and just go with the feeling. Other people might find that they're actually more interested in sticking with the form and exploring that. So it's up for you to feel, and it might be that both of you feel differently about it, and that's also okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Great. I'll do my usual follow-up email, but basically it's like text, what text is around our lives in the bakery, what sounds, what movements, and then how do we play with these in terms of content for an artwork? And to what degree do we want to abstract them? And how does it feel when we abstract them completely and when we stick to them as they are? Great. So I think if we do that this week, and then we take
the
it from
recording of them, Rita, how should we record those movements? Should it just be like a static, or should it just be
just
static. Set up the camera so we're not getting involved with, we're just recording the movement, not thinking about the camera.
No.
Yeah.
So next week, this week I just want to really see what the content is.
Yeah.
And then, later on when in my process I talk about contamination, at some point we'll go, we love this, and maybe the camera pans out as we do this.
Yeah.
So we bring the two layers together and then we kind of contaminate them and decide. But at the moment, if we keep it separate so that we can really zoom into them, so that would be great.
Yeah.
Good.
Excellent.
And just before we finish, you might not have had chance, because I know I sent you lots of stuff a day before you were doing it. But I've sent you some articles and some other links of other kind of food projects and things. If you've had any chance to look at them, any thoughts that you may have that you want to tell me now, if you haven't had a chance, that's fine. Whenever you've got time to go to them, we can discuss them then.
Yeah, we'll look at them before next week.
Yeah.
Because we didn't.
Okay, brilliant.
Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah. I know, I'm aware it's a lot.
Yeah.
Great. So I think we've got it, right?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Great.
Yeah, no, it's great to join us.
Yeah,
it's brilliant.
definitely. Yeah.
Me too. I'm having such a great time. You're both brilliant. I'm so excited. So thank you so much. Look out for my follow-up email, which will go tomorrow morning this time. And yeah, we'll take it from there.
Brilliant. Okay.
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 Lovely to see you.
See you, Eva.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.